Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to this new class of the oil and gas facilitating till business. As we have started this training since the beginning, we said by the end of the training, you shall be able to complete and conclude oil and gas deal very easily. You can work as a consultant in oil and gas companies. You can also work on, open your own consultation company firm, or you can work right from home on your own computer as a consultant. Okay, today we will continue the training since the last video that you watched, or the last class. We were discussing the terms and all the vocabs related to the business. As I have said, each business or each field of professional fields has its own vocabs related, and if you want to be a professional, or if you want to conclude your deals, you've got to use the right vocabs, right? You've got to use the right vocabs, which is professional, which is related to the business that you are running. So today we will continue with the vocabs, and today we are going to address two vocabs that are you will come across in the business. These are the shipping terms and the marine documents that are related. Let's start with the shipping terms. The first term that you're gonna hear, and you will hear about it a lot, it is the CIF. CIF, which stands for cost insurance and freight. Cost insurance and freight. This is the safer procedure for the buyer, because in this procedure the seller will have to ship the product, or to ship the goods to the buyer, to the safest port, the SWP, the safest world port for the buyer, and the seller is paid upon safe delivery. That means it is upon the delivery that the seller is paid. Reason why it is the safest, we say it is the safest procedure for the buyer. And I will have to say, the seller will be paid by the buyer upon the safest delivery and inspection of the product. So you have, as a seller, you have to ship the goods to the port for the buyer, and also make sure that it is the right goods and has the right quality that was ordered in the LOI, the letter of intention, right? Okay. And additionally, production of all required documents as specified in the body of the DLC. The discount for this kind of delivery is very small compared to the TTT and the FOB transaction. Since it is CIF, and the seller is the one shipping all the goods to the buyer, the discount is very little, is very it is very small compared to the TTT or the four other transactions, or that we are going to explain. The seller or the supplier loads the vessel, inspect the production on board the vessel, and deliver the product at a mutually agreed safe port, which we have defined before as the AWP. ASWP, any safe world port. Okay. At the delivery port, the buyer will conduct his own inspection to ascertain the quantity and quality of the product, and pay the seller or supplier based on the result of the inspection, after the seller or supplier has submitted all the relevant documentation, first of all, as specified in the SPE procedure contract, the sale purchase agreement. This is the best and safe way to buy crude oil. We discuss the commission aspects of the CIF transaction later, and there's usually 2% performance bond involved in this kind of transaction. So most of the time, when it is a CIF transaction, you will always have a 2%, a 2% commission bond. Okay, so you have understood what is the meaning of CIF, which stands for cost insurance and freight, and you have understood, or you have also got the point that it is the safest, the safest procedure for a buyer, especially when you are dealing with people abroad that you have never met face to face. Okay, good. The next shipping term that we are going to talk about is the FO. The FO, which stands for freight on board. In the freight on board, the buyer, the buyer will pay on spot. That means the buyer provides his vessel and a copy of his charter party agreement. That means it's like the sell purchase agreement. Okay, that means he sends his vessel, and with the all the required and related documents, his vessel says to the loading destination or the loading port, and his vessel load the cargo. He pays for his vessel charter and all the insurance. This method is also good because the buyer pays after his vessel is loaded and inspected to ascertain, the cure and cure quality and quantity. Okay, meaning in the freight on board procedure, the seller will send his vessel. The vessel will come to load the oil, right? When the vessel arrives at the mutually agreed port, the quality and quantity is ascertained first of all, and it is loaded in the ship or in the vessel. After it is loaded, the quality and quantity is checked. Then you the seller will not proceed the buyer will not proceed to payment. The buyer's bank will not wire the money. It is also a safe way. It is also a safe way for buying crude oil. It is also safe for the buyer, safe for the seller too, because everything is done on spot. The issue, one of the advantage with the freight for the seller is that once the quality and the quantity, the cure and cure report is already ascertained, everything can be done. It is which is not the case in the CIF, because the which is not the case in the CIF, the cost insurance and freight, because in the cost insurance and freight, he takes the risk. The seller is the one risking his money and everything to ship to ship the goods to the required ports. You get it? He might arrive there and the buyer says no, this is not what we have required, and it often happen, especially in African countries, Cameroon, Nigeria, and so on, where you can easily ship BLCO to a buyer, and when you arrive at the safe port, he tells you, no, this is not what I wanted. Okay, so you can, as a buyer, you can encourage, or the buyer agent encourage your buyer to use the CIF. But in case you are the agent for the seller, it is good to encourage him for the FOB, unless you don't have an option. Okay. Okay, the third shipping term that you're going to come across, especially if you are dealing with the Nigerian BLCO, is the Tanga to Tanka transfer, which is abbreviated as TTT, Tanka to Tanka transfer. This transaction is usually conducted in the international waters. Okay, the buyers and sellers vessels exchange communications, document, and commence communications. The seller's vessel will send a marine document, that is the NOR, to the buyer's vessel, and the NOR, which stands for notice of readiness. Okay, so as I said, the seller's vessel will send a document or a signal to the receiver. That means the buyer's vessel, the NOR, notice of readiness, to say I am ready. I carry the crude with me. I am ready to I mean to transact, or to pipe the to pipe the crude into your vessels. Then the buyer vessels as a confusion. This means that the seller's vessel contacts the buyer's vessel as a confirmation that he is ready to sail and meet him at an agreed discharge point. The buyer's vessel will respond with an ETA, which stands for expected time of arrival. Okay, so once the seller's vessel has sent the NOR, which stands for notice for readiness, that I am ready to sail. Okay, yeah, I carry the crude, I am ready to sail. Then the receiver or the buyer's vessel will now send an ETA. That means expected time of arrival. This is the time he expects to arrive at the agreed meeting point for the TTT transaction. And the TTT is a very risky type of transaction. I have to raise your attention on that. I have to call on your attention that TTT is very risky. The ocean could be very cruel. Among the three forms of crude oil delivery of to the buyer, CIF is the most recommended. Okay, so as a buyer, recommend the CIF. As a buyer's agent, recommend the CIF to you, your buyer. Okay, the the seller gets paid after the product is transshipped. Okay, is transshipped, okay, into the buyer's vessel. Cure and cure is conducted, and all the relevant documents are presented to the buyer's bank as specified in the contract. However, most sellers will require the buyer to open an irrevocable letter of credit in favor of the seller before transshipment takes place, which is very normal. He is not going to board his I mean to board his vessel and start sailing if he doesn't know, if he is not assured, if he doesn't have a guarantee that you're gonna buy the crude, if the quality, the cure and cure report is correct. Okay, this assure this assures the seller that the buyer will not steal the product and run away. Funny, isn't it? Yeah, it will happen. It does happen. I mean, in the international waters, there are bandits. There are people who attack vessels and steal the crude, the oil itself. So you have to be very careful when you're dealing with the TTT. Most of the time, especially in the Nigerian waters, right? Or I mean, African waters. It also happens in Somalia, where they sell the crew to you and they send their guys again. They come and attack your vessel and collect the crude. So we have mentioned the CIF, that the seller will have to ship the product or the goods to the buyer before he gets paid after an inspection, cure and cure, that is ascertained. We have mentioned the FOB, which means the buyer will send his vessel to be loaded, and after it is loaded, the cure and cure is ascertained, and he pays before going with the crude. And we have mentioned the TTT, which happens in international waters. And here we said there is a document called NOR, which is sent by the seller vessel to the buyer's vessel to notify him that he is ready to sell, and he has boarded the crude already. And the buyer's vessel will send to him the ETA, which stands for expected time of arrival. At this is the time that he will arrive the mutually agreed point in the ocean, in the international waters, and they will do the transaction. After the transaction is done and the cure and cure report is ascertained, then payment can start. And we have also mentioned to you that the TTT is very dangerous. If you are working, I mean, the CIF is the most recommended for buyers, and the FOB is the most recommended for sellers. Reason why, in a transaction, both parties will be trying, each one trying to use by the FOB. The seller will be trying to apply by the FOB, and the buyer will be trying to use the CIF. Reason why they have to come to a common ground during the TTT meeting. You have to be very careful as a consultant or as a facilitator to know where and what is the difference between both. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. We continue with other vocabs that you will meet across when you are in the oil and gas business. I hope you have got enough for today. Thank you very much.